The city of Kano glittered beneath the golden sun. Its towering palace walls stood as a symbol of power, wealth, and tradition. Merchants filled the bustling markets, selling colorful fabrics, spices, jewelry, and livestock. Drummers played in crowded squares while children chased one another through narrow streets. To outsiders, it seemed like a perfect kingdom. But inside the royal palace, Prince Zayd felt like a prisoner. Every morning began the same way. Royal advisors waiting outside his chamber. Guards following his every movement. Lessons on leadership. Meetings with nobles. Endless discussions about alliances, trade, and politics. Every moment of his life belonged to someone else. As the only son of Emir Bashir, Zayd carried the weight of an entire kingdom on his shoulders. One evening, he stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city. The call to prayer echoed across Kano. Thousands of lanterns illuminated the streets below. Yet despite the beauty before him, he felt empty. Footsteps approached. It was his father. The emir looked older than usual. His beard had become grayer over the years, and the responsibilities of leadership weighed heavily upon him. "Zayd," he said calmly. The prince turned. "Father." The emir rested both hands behind his back. "There is something important we must discuss." Immediately, Zayd sensed trouble. The emir rarely spoke with such formality unless it concerned matters of state. "I am listening." The ruler nodded. "The council has reached an agreement with the kingdom of Zaria." Zayd remained silent. "The alliance will strengthen both kingdoms." Still, he said nothing. Then came the words he feared. "You are to marry Princess Sophia." The prince felt his stomach tighten. "What?" "The marriage will take place in 3 months." For several moments, silence hung between them. Finally, Zayd spoke. "I have never even met her." The emir sighed. "This is not about personal feelings. It is my life. It is your duty." The answer struck like a slap. Duty. The word had followed Zayd his entire life. Duty to the throne. Duty to tradition. Duty to the kingdom. But what about his own dreams? His own happiness? "What if I refuse?" Zayd asked. The emir's expression hardened. "You will not." The conversation ended there. The ruler turned and walked away, leaving his son alone beneath the darkening sky. That night, sleep never came. Zayd lay awake staring at the ceiling. His thoughts raced endlessly. Marriage, politics, responsibility, a future already decided for him. For years he had obeyed every command, accepted every burden, sacrificed every desire. But now something inside him snapped. Before dawn, he made a decision. A dangerous one, a reckless one, a decision that would change everything. The palace slept peacefully. Guards patrolled the corridors. Servants rested in their quarters. No one noticed the shadow moving quietly through the darkness. Zayd had traded his royal robes for simple traveler's clothing. A small leather bag hung from his shoulder. Inside were a few supplies, some coins, and a dagger. Nothing that identified him as royalty. He moved carefully through a hidden passage known only to members of the royal family. The tunnel led beyond the palace walls. His heart pounded harder with every step. Part of him wanted to turn back, to return to safety, to accept his fate. But another part refused. When he finally emerged outside the city, a horse waited beneath a large acacia tree. Zayd climbed into the saddle. For a moment, he looked back at Kano, the city that had been his entire world, the city he was abandoning. Then he faced forward and rode into the darkness. By sunrise, the palace was in chaos. Servants discovered his empty chamber. Guards searched every corridor. Advisors panicked. The news spread rapidly. The prince was gone. Emir Bashir was furious. "Find him," he ordered. His voice thundered through the council chamber. "I don't care where he has gone." Soldiers immediately departed in every direction. Roads were monitored. Travelers questioned. Messengers dispatched across neighboring territories. But Prince Zayd had already traveled far from Kano, far beyond the reach of immediate pursuit. For the first time in his life, nobody knew where he was. And for the first time in his life, he felt free. Days turned into weeks. The landscape changed as he journeyed south. The dry northern plains gave way to greener lands. Dense forests appeared. Wide rivers stretched across the countryside. The air grew humid. The customs became unfamiliar. Everything felt different. Everything felt exciting. One afternoon, exhausted from travel, Zayd arrived at a riverside village called Ayanre. The village sat beside a vast river that sparkled beneath the afternoon sun. Wooden canoes lined the shore. Fishing nets hung from poles to dry. Women prepared freshly caught fish over smoking fires. Children ran barefoot through the narrow dirt paths. The atmosphere felt alive, unlike the rigid palace, unlike the carefully controlled world he had left behind. Here, people laughed freely, worked together, lived simply. Zayd immediately felt drawn to the place. He rented a small hut from an elderly fisherman and decided to stay for a few days, perhaps longer. He had no plan, no destination, only a desire to escape. But fate had other plans. 3 days later, dark clouds gathered unexpectedly. The villagers glanced nervously toward the sky. A storm was coming, and it was coming fast. Strong winds swept across the river. Waves crashed violently against the shore. Fishermen rushed to secure their boats. Families hurried indoors. Then suddenly, a scream shattered the air. Everyone turned. A small canoe had overturned in the raging river. A young boy was struggling in the water. The current dragged him farther away. His terrified cries echoed through the storm. Without hesitation, Zayd sprinted toward the shore. Before anyone could stop him, he plunged into the river. The water was colder and stronger than he expected. The current fought against him, pulled at his body, threatened to drag him under. But he pushed forward. The boy was getting weaker, closer, almost within reach. Then another splash erupted nearby. Someone else had jumped into the river. A young woman. She swam with incredible speed. Fearless, determined. Together they reached the child. Together they battled the current. And together they dragged him back towards safety. As villagers rushed to help them ashore, thunder rumbled overhead. The young woman turned toward Zayd. Water dripped from her face. Her eyes were sharp and fearless. Beautiful. "You're not from here," she said. Zayd caught his breath. "No." The woman smiled slightly. "I'm Adaeze." For a brief moment, the storm seemed to disappear. "I'm Zayn," he replied, using a false name. Adaeze nodded. "Well, Zayn." She glanced at the cheering villagers around them. "Welcome to Ayanre." Neither of them knew it yet, but their meeting had just set a dangerous destiny into motion. And hundreds of miles away, a royal messenger had finally uncovered the prince's trail. Someone now knew exactly where the missing heir of Kano was hiding. The storm that had nearly claimed a young boy's life became the talk of Ayanre for days. Everywhere Prince Zayd went, though the villagers knew him only as Zayn, people greeted him warmly. The fishermen praised his bravery. The elders nodded respectfully when he passed. The children followed him through the village, pretending to be heroes who rescued people from rivers. For the first time in his life, nobody bowed because of his title. Nobody treated him like a future ruler. They simply liked him for who they believed he was. And Zayd found himself enjoying village life more than he had ever imagined. Each morning before sunrise, he joined the fishermen as they paddled into the mist-covered river. He learned how to cast nets, how to read the movement of the water, how to identify dangerous currents. The work was exhausting. His hands developed blisters. His muscles ached. But every evening, he returned to his small hut with a sense of satisfaction he had never felt inside palace walls. Most of all, he enjoyed spending time with Adaeze. She seemed to know every hidden path in Ayanre, every story, every secret. Some days they explored the mangrove forests together. Other days they sat beside the river while she told him tales passed down through generations. As the weeks passed, their friendship deepened, and something else began growing between them. Something neither was ready to name. One afternoon, they sat beneath a large iroko tree overlooking the river. Adaeze watched a flock of birds glide across the sky. "You still haven't told me where you're from," she said. Zayd smiled. "I've told you. You've avoided the question. I travel a lot." "That's not an answer." She folded her arms. "You speak differently." "How?" "Like someone who spent years studying." Zayd laughed nervously. "Maybe I enjoy books." "And your hands?" He looked down. "What about them?" "They don't look like a fisherman's hands." The prince quickly hid them. Adaeze narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "You have secrets." "So do you." She grinned. "Fair enough." The conversation ended there. But Zayd knew she was becoming curious. too curious. The closer they became, the harder it was to maintain his lie. Yet he couldn't bring himself to tell her the truth. Not yet. Maybe because he feared losing the happiness he had finally found. Or maybe because he feared losing her. That evening, Adaeze approached his hut unexpectedly. "We're going somewhere." Zayd looked up from repairing a fishing net. "Where?" "It's a surprise." "That sounds dangerous." She smiled mischievously. "Only a little." Before he could protest, she grabbed his arm and led him toward the edge of the village. The sun had already begun disappearing beyond the horizon. Darkness slowly settled across the river. The pair followed a narrow path through thick mangrove trees. Branches twisted overhead like giant fingers. The air felt unusually quiet, almost too quiet. Eventually, they reached a secluded section of the riverbank. Moonlight shimmered across the water. The place was beautiful. "Why bring me here?" Zayd asked. Adaeze smiled. "When life becomes difficult, I come here." The prince looked around. "I can see why." For several moments they stood together in comfortable silence. Then suddenly, voices echoed across the water. Adaeze's smile vanished. Zayd immediately noticed the change in her expression. "What's wrong?" She pointed toward the river. A large boat was approaching. Its lanterns were covered. Its occupants moved carefully, quietly, almost as if they didn't want to be seen. The two quickly hid behind thick bushes. The boat reached the shore. Several men climbed out, all dressed in dark clothing. None looked like fishermen. None looked familiar. The strangers began unloading large wooden crates. Adaeze frowned. "That's strange." "What is?" "No trader uses this route." Zayd continued watching. Something about the men felt wrong. Their movements were disciplined, organized, dangerous. Then one of the crates slipped from a worker's hands. It crashed against the ground. The lid broke open. For a brief second, moonlight illuminated its contents. Rifles. Dozens of them. Adaeze's eyes widened. "Those are guns." Zayd's stomach tightened. The men hurriedly sealed the crate. But the damage was done. The truth had been exposed. This wasn't ordinary smuggling. This was something far more serious. "Who are they?" Adaeze whispered. "I don't know." The prince's mind raced. Weapons in such numbers could only mean one thing. Someone was preparing for violence. Perhaps war. Perhaps rebellion. Either way, innocent people would suffer. As they watched, one of the men unfolded a map. The others gathered around. Their leader pointed towards several marked locations. Among them was Ayanre. Zayd's pulse quickened. The village was somehow involved. Or perhaps targeted. Neither possibility was good. "We should leave," he whispered. Adaeze nodded. Slowly, carefully, they began retreating into the shadows. Then disaster struck. A dry branch snapped beneath Zayd's foot. The sound echoed loudly through the night. Every head turned. Silence. A terrifying silence. Then came a shout. "Who's there?" Flashlights swept across the riverbank. One beam landed directly on the bushes. The men instantly reached for their weapons. "Run!" Adaeze yelled. The pair exploded into motion. Behind them, angry voices erupted. Footsteps thundered through the darkness. The smugglers were chasing them. Branches whipped against their faces. Roots threatened to trip them. The mangrove forest became a maze. Several times Zayd heard bullets strike nearby trees. The attackers weren't merely trying to scare them. They wanted witnesses eliminated. Adaeze grabbed his hand. "This way." They darted between thick roots and dense vegetation. The smugglers continued pursuing them relentlessly. Closer, closer, closer. For one horrifying moment, Zayd thought they would be caught. Then they reached a narrow channel hidden among the mangroves. Adaeze jumped into a small canoe tied nearby. "Get in." The prince obeyed instantly. She cut the rope. The current carried them away. Moments later, they disappeared into the darkness. The smugglers reached the riverbank too late. Their frustrated shouts echoed behind them. But neither Adaeze nor Zayd stopped paddling until they were far from danger. Hours later, they finally returned to the village. Both were exhausted. Both were shaken. Neither could forget what they had witnessed. "We have to tell someone," Adaeze said. "The village chief." Zayd hesitated. "What if the wrong person hears?" She stared at him. "What do you mean?" If men like that are operating nearby, they probably have help. Adaeze frowned. You think someone in Ayanre is involved? It's possible. The idea terrified her. Ayanre was a close-knit community. The thought that one of their own might be helping criminals seemed impossible. Yet deep down, she knew he could be right. Before either could speak again, distant cries echoed through the village. People were shouting, running. Panic spread rapidly through the streets. Adaeze and Zayd exchanged worried looks. Then they rushed toward the commotion. A crowd had gathered near the river. Villagers stood frozen in horror. An elderly fisherman lay motionless on the ground, dead. The same fisherman who had recently complained about strange activities along the river. The same fisherman who had claimed he was being watched. Fear spread through the crowd like wildfire. Someone had silenced him. And as Zayd looked toward the dark river beyond the village, he realized a chilling truth. The men they had seen tonight were far more dangerous than they had imagined. And now, they knew exactly what Adaeze and Zayd looked like. Fear settled over Ayanre like a dark cloud. The death of the elderly fisherman shook the entire village. People who once sat outside their homes at night now locked their doors before sunset. The laughter that usually echoed along the riverbanks had disappeared. Conversations became whispers. Every stranger was viewed with suspicion. Every unusual sound caused alarm. And somewhere in the shadows, dangerous men continued watching. The village chief, Chief Adaeze, called an emergency gathering in the central square. Villagers crowded around him, their faces filled with worry. We must remain calm, he announced. The authorities have been informed. What about the fisherman who was killed? Someone shouted. What if the killers return? Chief Adaeze raised both hands. Ayanre has survived many challenges. We will survive this one too. His words comforted many. After all, Chief Adaeze had led the village for years. People trusted him, respected him, believed he would protect them. Only Zayd felt uneasy. As he watched the chief address the crowd, something felt wrong. Not enough to accuse him. Not enough to explain. Just a feeling that refused to disappear. Beside him, Adaeze folded her arms. You don't trust him. Zayd glanced at her. What makes you think that? You keep staring at him. The prince forced a smile. Maybe I'm just being careful. Or maybe your instincts are telling you something. The words lingered in his mind long after the meeting ended. Because his instinct had rarely been wrong. The following days brought even more trouble. Several fishing boats were found destroyed. Nets worth months of income disappeared overnight. Families began struggling to feed themselves. The attacks seemed designed to spread fear. And they were working. One evening, Adaeze burst into Zayd's hut. Her face was pale. Something was terribly wrong. Adaeze. It's my father. Zayd stood immediately. What happened? I can't find him. The words came out trembling. He left before dawn to check his fishing traps. He never came back. A chill ran through Zayd. Have you searched the river? Everywhere. His friends? No one has seen him. For a moment, silence filled the room. Both understood the terrifying possibility neither wanted to say aloud. Adaeze's father hadn't simply disappeared. He had been taken. The search lasted 2 days. Villagers combed the riverbanks. Fishermen searched nearby islands. Young men explored the surrounding forests. Nothing. No sign. No clues. No answers. Then, on the third night, Adaeze found something. A torn piece of her father's clothing, caught on a branch near an abandoned section of mangrove swamp. When she showed it to Zayd, his expression hardened. Where did you find this? She pointed toward the distant forest, near the old warehouse. The abandoned one? She nodded. The warehouse had stood empty for years. At least, that's what everyone believed. Adaeze looked directly into his eyes. I think that's where they're hiding him. Zayd didn't hesitate. Then we investigate. The moon hung low over the river as they approached the warehouse. The structure emerged from the darkness like a giant shadow. Weathered wood, rusting metal, broken windows. From a distance, it appeared deserted. But appearances could be deceiving. The closer they got, the more obvious it became. The building wasn't abandoned. Voices echoed from inside. Lantern light flickered through cracks in the walls. Someone was there. A lot of people. The pair moved carefully through the darkness. Eventually, they found a broken section of wall, just large enough to peek through. What they saw stole their breath. Rows of wooden crates filled the warehouse. Far more than before. Some contained rifles. Others contained ammunition. There were enough weapons to arm an entire army. Adaeze covered her mouth. Oh my God. But the weapons weren't the only surprise. Several prisoners sat tied up in one corner. Among them was Adaeze's father. Alive. Bruised. But alive. Relief flooded through her. She almost rushed forward. Zayd quickly grabbed her arm. Not yet. Then footsteps echoed across the warehouse. Everyone immediately stood straighter. The atmosphere changed. Someone important was arriving. A large door opened. A man entered surrounded by armed guards. The moment Adaeze saw his face, her entire body froze. No. Zayd stared in disbelief. It couldn't be. Yet there he was. Chief Adaeze, the respected village leader, the trusted elder, the man who had promised to protect everyone. He was the mastermind. Chief Adaeze walked confidently between the crates. A smile stretched across his face. Everything is nearly ready. One of the armed men nodded. The final shipment arrives soon. Excellent. And the prisoners? The chief glanced toward Adaeze's father. They've seen too much. Adaeze clenched her fists. The betrayal cut deep. The man the village trusted most had been working with criminals all along. Suddenly a twig snapped beneath her foot. The sound echoed loudly. Chief Adaeze stopped speaking. His eyes narrowed. Silence filled the warehouse. Then he smiled. Bring them out. Adaeze's heart nearly stopped. They had been discovered. Within seconds, armed men surrounded them. There was nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. They were dragged inside and thrown before Chief Adaeze. The old man studied them carefully. His smile widened. I've been expecting you. Adaeze glared at him. You kidnapped my father. Business required it. You're destroying this village. Chief Adaeze laughed. The village is insignificant. The coldness in his voice shocked her. This wasn't the man she thought she knew. This was someone else entirely. Someone dangerous. Then Chief Adaeze turned toward Zayd. His eyes sparkled with amusement. And finally, the prince. The words hit like thunder. Adaeze blinked. What? Chief Adaeze chuckled. Oh, you didn't know? The blood drained from Adaeze's face. Zayd remained silent. Suddenly everything made sense. His speech, his education, his mysterious past, his constant secrecy. Chief Adaeze stepped closer. You've been hiding quite well, Prince Zayd of Kano. Adaeze slowly turned toward him. The look in her eyes hurt more than any weapon. It's true. Zayd lowered his head. Yes. The single word shattered something between them. You lied to me. Adaeze. You lied every day. I was trying to protect. Protect who? Her voice cracked. Me or yourself? The prince had no answer. Because deep down, he knew she was right. Before either could say more, chaos erupted. A gunshot exploded outside the warehouse. Then another. Then dozens more. Armed men rushed toward the doors. Shouting filled the night. Chief Adaeze's smile vanished. What is happening? A terrified guard ran inside. Soldiers. The chief's eyes widened. Whose soldiers? The answer came immediately. Royal war horns echoed through the swamp. Zayd recognized them instantly. Kano. The royal army had found him. As gunfire erupted around the warehouse and panic spread among the smugglers, the prince realized one thing. His old life had finally caught up with him. And nothing would ever be the same again. The night exploded into chaos. Gunfire echoed through the mangrove swamp as soldiers from Kano stormed the warehouse from every direction. Armed smugglers scrambled for cover. Crates toppled over. Lanterns shattered. Smoke filled the air. In the middle of the confusion, Zayd grabbed Adaeze's hand. Come on. For a brief moment, she hesitated. The revelation of his true identity still burned inside her. The man she had trusted, the man she had fallen for, had lied to her from the very beginning. But there was no time for arguments. Bullets tore through the warehouse walls. People screamed. Chief Adaeze's men were fighting desperately to escape. Together, they rushed toward the prisoners. Zayd cut the ropes binding Adaeze's father. The older man stumbled to his feet. Adaeze. Dad. Father and daughter embraced quickly before Zayd urged them forward. We have to move. The three escaped through a side entrance moments before another wave of soldiers stormed the building. Behind them, Chief Adaeze disappeared into the darkness, like a ghost, gone before anyone could capture him. And with him went countless secrets. By sunrise, the warehouse had been secured. The weapons were seized. Several smugglers were arrested, but the mastermind had escaped. The royal commander who led the operation requested an immediate meeting with Zayd. They gathered inside a temporary military camp near the river. The commander bowed respectfully. "My prince." The title sounded strange after weeks of being known only as Zayn. Adaeze stood nearby, silent, watching, listening. The commander handed Zayd a sealed letter. "The emir sent this." Zayd opened it. His expression immediately darkened. "What is it?" Adaeze asked. The prince looked up slowly. "My father is dying." Silence followed. The words struck him harder than he expected. Despite their disagreements, Emir Bashir was still his father, the ruler who had spent years preparing him for leadership, the man he had abandoned. The commander spoke carefully. "The kingdom is unstable." Zayd continued reading. Several powerful nobles were challenging the emir's authority. Border disputes were growing worse. Political rivals were gathering support. The disappearance of the crown prince had weakened the throne, and now rumors of the emir's illness were spreading. "If you do not return soon," the commander said quietly, "there could be war." The prince stared toward the river. Everything he had escaped was waiting for him. Responsibility, politics, duty, his old life. The very things he had tried to leave behind. That evening, Zayd found Adaeze sitting alone by the water. The sunset painted the river gold. For a while neither spoke. Finally, Zayd broke the silence. "I never wanted to hurt you." Adaeze continued staring at the water. "But you did." "I know. You could have told me." "I wanted to." "Then why didn't you?" The prince sighed. "Because the moment you knew who I was, everything would change." She looked at him. "And it has." The truth hurt because it was undeniable. The simplicity they once shared was gone. No more village boy. No more fisherman. No more ordinary life. Just a prince and a fisherman's daughter, separated by worlds. After a long silence, Adaeze stood. "You should go back to Kano." "What about us?" The question hung heavily between them. Adaze's eyes glistened. "There is no us right now." Then she walked away, leaving Zayd alone with the setting sun. 3 days later, the prince departed Ayanre. The entire village gathered to watch. Some cheered. Some stared in disbelief. Others bowed respectfully after learning his true identity. But only one person's reaction mattered to him. Adaeze never came. The absence broke his heart. Yet duty called. And this time, he couldn't ignore it. The journey north was long, dangerous, and far from peaceful. Word of Zayd's return spread quickly. Not everyone welcomed it. On the 4th night, assassins attacked his convoy. They emerged from the darkness without warning. Arrows flew through the air. Several soldiers fell instantly. The attackers fought with deadly precision. Someone powerful wanted the prince dead. The ambush failed, but it revealed a troubling reality. The conspiracy stretched far beyond Ayanre, far beyond Chief Adaeze. Powerful figures were involved. Men with influence, men with resources, men who feared Zayd's return. Meanwhile, back in Ayanre, Adaeze struggled to move on. She threw herself into helping her father rebuild his fishing business. She worked longer hours, spoke less, avoided conversations about Zayd. Yet no matter how hard she tried, memories followed her everywhere. Then one evening, her father approached her. His face was unusually serious. "I need to show you something." He led her inside their home. From beneath a wooden floorboard, he removed a folded document. "What is it?" "A map." Adaeze examined it carefully. Several river routes were marked, along with locations she recognized from the warehouse. Her eyes widened. "This belongs to Chief Adaeze." Her father nodded. "I found it while they held me captive." Adaze's pulse quickened. Then she noticed something else. A symbol, one she had seen before. The mark appeared beside a location near the northern border. "What does it mean?" Her father's expression darkened. "It means the final shipment is still coming." Shipment? The biggest one. Fear crawled down her spine. The weapons, thousands of them. Adaeze stared at the map. If the shipment arrived, it could arm an entire rebel force. Enough to ignite conflict across multiple regions. Enough to start a war. Suddenly, everything became clear. Chief Adaeze's operation hadn't ended. It had only evolved. And somewhere, he was preparing his final move. Several days later, news arrived from Kano. The kingdom was on the edge of crisis. Political factions were openly threatening rebellion. Troops were mobilizing. Tensions spread across the region. War felt closer than ever. Adaeze sat alone that night studying the map. The decision before her wasn't easy. She could stay in Ayanre, protect her family, forget about Zayd forever. Or she could act. Help stop the conspiracy. Help prevent a war. Even if it meant seeing him again. Even if it meant reopening wounds that hadn't healed. The answer came before sunrise. Adaeze packed a small bag. Her father watched silently. "You've made your choice." She nodded. "I have to go." He smiled proudly. "Then go." As the first rays of dawn touched the river, Adaeze stepped into a canoe. Her destination lay hundreds of miles away. Kano, the kingdom of princes, palaces, politics, and danger. What she didn't know was that Chief Adaeze had already learned about the map. And as she paddled away from Ayanre, armed riders were beginning a deadly hunt. Because the fisherman's daughter now carried the one secret capable of destroying an empire. The journey to Kano was more dangerous than Adaeze could have imagined. From the moment she left Ayanre, she felt eyes watching her. Twice, armed riders appeared on distant roads. Once, a group of strangers questioned travelers about a young woman carrying important documents. Chief Adaeze's men were searching, and they were getting closer. But Adaeze refused to turn back. The map hidden beneath her clothing contained information that could prevent a war. Too many lives depended on it. Too much was at stake. Days later, exhausted and covered in dust, she finally arrived at Kano. The city was unlike anything she had ever seen. Massive walls surrounded the kingdom. Markets stretched endlessly. Thousands of people crowded the streets. Yet beneath the activity, tension lingered. Soldiers patrolled every corner. Merchants whispered nervously. Everyone sensed that trouble was coming. The kingdom stood on the edge of disaster. And somewhere inside the palace, Prince Zayd was fighting a battle of his own. Since returning home, Zayd had discovered that leadership was far more dangerous than he remembered. His father's health continued to decline. The royal council was divided. Several powerful nobles openly challenged the throne. Rumors of rebellion spread daily. Worst of all, evidence suggested that Chief Adaeze's network had infiltrated parts of the government itself. Enemies were everywhere. Some smiled during meetings. Some pledged loyalty. Yet behind closed doors, they plotted against the crown. One evening, as Zayd studied reports inside the palace, a guard burst into the room. "My prince." Zayd looked up. "What is it?" "A woman from Ayanre is here." His heart skipped. Before the guard could finish, Adaeze stepped into the chamber. For several seconds, neither spoke. The months apart vanished instantly. The hurt, the memories, the feelings neither had managed to forget. "Adaeze." She smiled softly. "Hello, Zayd." For the first time in weeks, the prince felt hope. That hope quickly turned into urgency. Adaeze revealed the map. She explained everything her father had discovered. The hidden routes, the secret shipments, the final delivery of weapons. As royal advisors examined the map, their faces grew pale. "This changes everything," one of them whispered. The markings revealed the location of a massive weapons stockpile hidden near the northern border. Enough weapons to arm thousands of fighters. Enough to plunge multiple kingdoms into war. Even more shocking, several noble families were connected to the operation. Chief Adaeze had not been working alone. He had powerful allies. People who wanted conflict. People who would profit from bloodshed. The conspiracy reached deeper than anyone had imagined. The royal council immediately prepared a military response. But time was running out. Scouts reported that the final shipment would arrive within days. If they failed to stop it, rebellion would become inevitable. War would spread across the region, and countless innocent people would die. 2 nights later, Prince Zayd led an army toward an ancient fortress near the borderlands. The fortress had been abandoned for generations. Now it served as the headquarters of Chief Adaeze's operation. Adaeze rode alongside him. Though she had never participated in a military campaign before, she refused to stay behind. This fight had started in her village. She intended to see it finished. As dawn approached, the fortress emerged from the darkness. Smoke rose from dozens of campfires. Hundreds of armed men occupied the surrounding hills. The final shipment had already arrived. The battle could not be avoided. Zayd surveyed the enemy forces. Then he turned toward his commanders. "We end this today." The attack began at sunrise. War horns echoed across the valley. Royal soldiers charged forward. Arrows filled the air. The ground shook beneath the thunder of advancing warriors. The enemy responded immediately. Gunfire erupted from the fortress walls. Smoke covered the battlefield. Chaos spread in every direction. Yet something remarkable happened. The forces fighting beside Zayd came from different regions, different cultures, different backgrounds. Northern soldiers, southern volunteers, river communities, desert tribes. People who had once viewed one another as strangers now stood united. Not because of politics, not because of power, because they all wanted peace, because they all refused to let greed destroy their future. Among them were several fishermen from Ayanre, men who had traveled hundreds of miles to help stop Chief Adaeze. The sight filled Adaeze with pride. By midday, the battle reached its climax. Royal forces breached the fortress gates. Fighting erupted inside the ancient structure. Chief Adaeze realized defeat was approaching. Desperate, he attempted to flee, but Zayd intercepted him. The old man stood in a courtyard surrounded by burning debris. For a moment, the two simply stared at each other. Then Chief Adaeze laughed. "You still don't understand." Zayd raised his sword. "Understand what? People are easier to control when they fear each other." The old man's eyes burned with hatred. North against south, tribe against tribe, kingdom against kingdom. He pointed toward the battlefield. "Peace is bad for men like us." Then he attacked. The fight was brutal. Chief Adaeze was older, but surprisingly skilled. Years of deception had hidden a dangerous warrior beneath the appearance of a village elder. Steel clashed repeatedly. Neither man gave ground. Finally, after a fierce struggle, Zayd disarmed him. Chief Adaeze fell to his knees. His empire of corruption had collapsed. His conspiracy was finished. The war he had worked so hard to create would never begin. Weeks later, peace returned. The conspirators were arrested. The hidden weapons were seized. The rebellion dissolved before it could spread. Across the region, people celebrated. Trade resumed. Families reunited. Hope returned. Inside Kano, another challenge remained. Prince Zayd's desire to marry Adaeze sparked controversy among the nobility. Many opposed the idea. Some believed a fisherman's daughter was unworthy of becoming a princess. Others feared breaking centuries of tradition. The debate divided the royal court. Then something extraordinary happened. On the day of the final decision, hundreds of people arrived at the palace. Fishermen from Ayanre, village elders, merchants, soldiers, farmers, people from every corner of the kingdom. They came not to protest, but to stand together, to show what Zayd and Adaeze had already proven, that unity was stronger than division, that character mattered more than status, that love could bridge any distance. The crowd's support overwhelmed the opposition. At last, the objections faded. The path was clear. Months later, beneath a sky filled with music and celebration, Prince Zayd married Adaeze. The wedding became one of the most memorable events in the kingdom's history. People traveled from distant regions to witness it. Northern drummers performed alongside southern dancers. Ancient traditions blended together. Different cultures celebrated as one. And as Zayd looked into Adaeze's eyes, he realized how far they had come. A runaway prince. A fisherman's daughter. Two people from completely different worlds. Yet somehow, fate had brought them together. Not just to save a kingdom, but to change it. Their story spread far beyond Kano. Far beyond Ayanre. It became a legend told for generations. A reminder that the strongest bridges are not built from stone or wood. They are built from trust, courage, sacrifice, and love. Because true love recognizes no borders. Not between villages. Not between kingdoms. And not between hearts willing to fight for each other.